In this video, we're going to be talking about DIY cable pulley setups. I'm going to be covering 4 different options. 3 of them are permanent and 1 of them is detachable in case you're renting or for some reason you just don't want to permanently anchor down a cable system. But before we get into the video, hi, my name is Ryan, Treadaway, founder of TreadawayTraining.com, where we help busy professionals get more results in less time through online training. And we're almost to that 1,000 subscriber mark, so if you've been enjoying the videos, consider hitting that subscribe button. Now, before talking about the DIY approach, it is worth mentioning that there are a couple of kits online that you can get that are pretty much already done for you. All you have to do is hang them up. But I would actually caution you against going with the pre-made option in this route, because they're going to be 1, more expensive, and 2, if you do it yourself, you get to pick each of the components, so it'll actually end up being higher quality and cheaper. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it in this video, so there's really no downside to piecing it out yourself anyway. You can get all these components at your local hardware store, and I will also include links to purchase all the things that I talk about in this video down in the description if you just want to do it that way. But keep in mind that if you do order them online, you're not going to be able to put your hands on them beforehand and see how smooth the pulleys are and all of that kind of stuff. So you might order something, get it in, decide that it's not going to work or that you don't like it, and then you'll have to send it back and try again. Whereas if you just go to the store, you'll be able to look at it, feel it, see how smooth it is, and you'll know beforehand if all the components are going to work together. Now to the setups. Configuration 1. The first configuration is going to be a single overhead pulley. This is definitely the easiest option of the 4, and it's going to only take 10, maybe 15 minutes tops once you get all the components home. You will need 1/8 inch coated steel cable, and the reason why you're going to want to go with coated cable is that if you don't, over time the wire is going to fray, it's going to pick your clothes, and it's going to scratch up your skin. 1 pulley, and I would recommend getting one that will separate. You can get them that have a cotter pin that you just pull out and then the pulley slides out, or you can get one like this where it spins open this way. And the reason why I would recommend getting one that separates is so that once you get the cable fixed the way it's going to be, I actually have it right here, you can see that this isn't going to fit through here. So if you have one that doesn't have a cotter pin or doesn't separate like this one, once you put it on there, it's going to be permanently attached, and if you ever need to make any changes to it, you're actually going to have to cut the cable and just completely start over, versus if you want to make a change with this one, you can just separate it and pull the pulley off. 1 4-inch screw hook to attach it to the joist, 2 cable thimbles, 2 interlocking spring snaps, 1 weight pin to put your weights on, and this is technically optional because you could just get a chain if you already have one laying around the house and just loop the chain around your weights and do it that way, but this will help to prevent the weight from swinging a little bit and make it a little bit easier to load the weight and unload the weight. And there's one part where you have a couple of options in terms of how you proceed, and this applies to all 4 of the setups. When it comes to wrapping the cable around the thimble and then securing it, you can go with a little U-bolt clamp, and then you can clamp the cable down that way. And if you're going to go with that option, I would go with at least 2 clamps, probably 3, to make sure that it stays nice and secure. Or you could use a cable ferrule. And so the way that'll work is you'll strip some of the coating off so that it'll fit through the ferrule, and then you'll slide the cable in one side, you'll loop it around the thimble, you'll slide it back through the other side, and then you will use a crimping tool to crimp this down and secure it that way. This way is going to be a little bit better. You're not going to have these bolts hanging out the sides that could potentially scratch you and stuff like that. You're going to have less actual cable that could fray, that's sticking out, that would scratch you. So the cable ferrule would be the better option, but if you do go with the cable ferrules, you will need a crimping tool, or as they're colloquially known at Treadaway Farms, the booby builders. And once you use them a few times, you'll see how they got that name. Now, getting into how to actually set this up, the first step that you will do is you will take your screw hook and you'll screw that into the joist. And then we'll come back to that here in a minute. When it comes to prepping the cable, you'll take a razor blade and you'll strip off some of the coating so that it'll fit through the ferrule like I had already mentioned, loop it around the thimble, put it back through the ferrule, and then you'll use your crimper tool to crimp this down, or if you're using the clamp, you will simply use a nut driver to tighten that down. and then you'll do that on both sides of the cable. And then once you have that prepared, then you will put the cable into the pulley, you'll close it off, and then you'll simply hang your pulley from the ceiling. Boom, done. Very, very simple. Like I said, this is very easy, very short, takes 10 minutes, maybe 15 tops. Now let's move on to configuration 2. So now we're getting into options that have both a high pulley and a low pulley option, so that you can do your rows, your glute cable kickbacks, all of your low cable kind of exercise, as well as your high pulley cable exercises. Configuration 2 is a support post mounted option, so it's not going to be quite as applicable to a lot of people out there, but since it is the option that we have here, you can see it and get an idea of how it works, so that way when we talk about option 3, which will be a wall mounted version, you'll be able to picture it in your head a little bit better. Getting into configuration 2, you will need coated cable, 2 flat mount pulleys, 1 regular pulley, an exhaust bracket, which you'll likely have to get from an automotive store, or a standard U-bolt bracket that has the little flat part at the end, and this will permanently deform once you tighten it down around your post, but you're probably not going to be removing it anyway, so that's perfectly fine. 4 cable thimbles. Depending on what type of regular pulley you selected, you will need either 3 or 4 of the interlocking spring snaps, a weight pin, and again, your choice of U-bolt clamps or cable ferrules. The way this configuration will work is you'll take your flat mount pulley, you will screw that to the side of a joist, and you'll take your other one and you'll screw that to the side of another joist. And one important note here is if you're going with this option, you will actually have to drill a hole in the joist so that the cable can pass through to the other pulley. So that's the one thing that you might not be okay with this particular setup. For the bottom pulley, what you'll do is you'll attach one of the snaps beforehand, and then you will put the bracket and tighten it down onto the bottom of the post. And then you'll be able to attach your pulley from there. So we'll put this other snap on, and depending on if this has a vertical or if it's horizontal or if it has a swivel, you may not need this second one. So in this case we'll attach that here. And so then when we're looking at the bottom cable, you'll have this part will be flush against the post, so it won't move, but we'll have a little bit of freedom. So if you're doing something in different directions, there'll be a little bit of freedom with that bottom pulley. Once you have your pulleys attached, it's time to prepare your cable. So you'll do the exact same thing you did with the first configuration, except for you will do it twice. You'll need 2 separate cables so that you can have your high pulley and your low pulley. So the way that will work is you'll just have to measure based off of, you know, how high your ceilings are and how far you have your pulleys spaced apart. So you'll want it to where when your pin is on the ground, you'll have enough length for the cable to run all the way up to the first pulley, all the way across, and then come down to about head height. And then you'll terminate that cable right there. And then for the second length of cable, you'll want to attach it so that it goes from that first cable down through the bottom pulley, which will be attached to the bottom post, and then come out and be able to attach to your handles. I don't have configurations 3 or 4 in person, so I don't have the option to get footage of them, so you'll have to deal with my amazing stick figure diagrams. And you can now see why we went with option 2 first, even though it's less applicable to a lot of you out there. Configuration 3 is also going to be a high and low pulley, except for we're going to be mounting it to the wall. For this option, you will need coated cable, 3 flat mount pulleys, 4 cable thimbles, 3 interlocking spring snaps, a weight pin, and your choice of either clamps or ferrules. So with this option, we're actually getting a little bit clever, but it's still pretty simple. Starting with the bottom pulley this time, we'll take one of our flat mount pulleys and we'll mount it to the wall a few inches off the ground. And a good idea here would be to actually add some reinforcement to it. So what you could actually do is take a 2x4 or a 2x6, and you could mount that to the wall using multiple anchor points, just so that there's a little bit more attaching it to the wall, and then you can attach this to that piece of wood. Next, we'll take another pulley. We'll do the exact same thing, except we'll do it higher up on the wall. And in terms of how high you do it off the wall, it will kind of depend on how tall you are and, you know, how high you need that pulley to be so that you can do your overhead exercises. And the third pulley is going to be mounted to the side of one of the joists, and just to add a little bit more stability to the system, since it is going to be pulling sideways on one of the joists, you might want to add some type of support between between the joist that it's on and the joist that it's being pulled towards. Put a little bit of support between those two. That way it's not gonna warp it or make it wobbly or shackledy over time and kind of ruin the structural integrity of that floor joist. And one thing you'll want to be careful of is when mounting your high pulley to the wall, you won't want it to be too high so that the cable is rubbing up against the bottom of the joist that's in front of your third pulley. And once you get your 3 pulleys mounted, it's time to prepare your cable. And just to save a little bit of time, there's no need to actually cover it again because it's gonna be exactly the same as with the previous configuration. You're gonna prepare 2 lengths of cable, and the length of the cables will again be determined by how far apart your pulleys are, like with the previous configuration. Configuration 4 is the detachable option for those of you who can't or don't want to anchor something down permanently. For this option, you will need coated cable, 2 pulleys, 3 soft loop tie-down straps, 4 cable thimbles, 5 interlocking spring snaps, a weight pin, and again, your choice of clamps or cable ferrules. This configuration is actually pretty simple and easy to put up and take down. Take one of your soft loop straps, wrap it around the pull-up bar, connect the 2 loops with one of your spring snaps, and hang your pulley from that snap. Do the exact same thing wrapping around one of the bottom cross members of the squat rack. And then you'll prepare your cable the exact same way we've done with the previous 2 configurations. And that's it. You're done. There you have it, 4 different cable pulley configurations that you can do, all of which I haven't added up the math, but I'm gonna say around 25, 30 bucks. So way cheaper than the options that you can buy pre-made for you online, and it's going to be better quality. But I'm curious, for those of you who have already done your own DIY cable setup, how did you set your cables up? Let me know about your setups down in the comments, and if there are enough of them, I might do a part 2 to this video and share even more configurations with you guys. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate it, give it a thumbs down. If you want more content just like this, consider subscribing and help us hit that 1,000 mark. Or you can check out one of the videos that will be up on the screen. You can also check us out on the Treadaway Training Blogcast. We're there every Sunday at 3 p.m. That's treadawaytraining.com/blog. As always, God bless you and your family, and we'll see you tomorrow. Once you get all your pulleys mounted, it's time. And once you get your 3 pulleys set up, it's gonna be, and once you get your pulleys mounted, and once you get all 3 of your pulleys mounted, oh my gosh, I've messed this line up like 37 times.